Thank you and welcome to Insider Secrets for Parents, 5 tips to help your child become a master problem solver. Today's agenda is to discuss what problems our kids will face in the future and why problem solving is so important. And what makes a good problem solver? Can your child become a problem solver that can deal with any situation in the future? Finally, to help you to become better teachers to your kids outside of the Shichida classes, we'll give you 5 very practical steps that you can take to help your kids. These steps don't take too much time out of your day. They're just a few minutes. Do them every day and you will see the big differences in the future once your child enters the school. Now, in the future, kids will have to face many difficult problems. Already we're seeing many problems in the environment causing global warming. We see the pollution in our oceans as well as the population explosions and natural disasters that affect us on a daily basis. Career and economy will be affected by artificial intelligence. This is already a reality and it's causing a big change in our job market and in our workplace. Our workforce is becoming international, so kids are facing or will be facing increased competition in the next 10 to 15 years. Already we're feeling those differences. Some current jobs will disappear, and we're seeing that in manufacturing fields in Australia, and also new types of jobs will emerge. So will your child be able to deal with these new opportunities that they can use? Personal relationships will also change, mainly caused by technology. I've seen little 2-year-old babies already playing with the iPhone and the smartphones in the stores. They seem like they were born to do this sort of thing. So they'll be highly influenced by technology. So that will affect their relationships that they have with other people. But with that comes the negative consequences, online predators, and also an inability to be able to deal with social situations will become a big problem. And will we be the parents or will technology be our kids' parents? This is a big choice that we have to face in the future. Problem solving will be very important because without it, you cannot come up with innovative and creative thinking. New problems that come up have never happened before, and in the future there will be even more problems. With better technology come even more difficult problems. The other thing will be that everything will be connected. If you change one thing, it will change everything else. So kids will have to deal with all the variables that come into play when solving a problem. Knowledge is doubling every 12 months, meaning that the amount of knowledge that is in the internet doubles every 12 months, and soon it will double every 12 hours. So what your kid is learning in school now and what they will learn in university will probably be outdated by the time they graduate. So they will have to learn to adapt on the fly and deal with new difficult situations. To show you an example, when we were probably younger, we would have maybe some phones or some electronic devices with a megabyte. And to kind of give you an idea of how big that is, imagine that would be the size of a tiny ant, or the information in a large novel. 1 gigabyte of information, that's about maybe a more expensive phone, but still, it's still an outdated form. But the information in the human genome, in the human DNA, that's about 1 gigabyte. It's about the height of a short person compared to 1 megabyte. Now, if you take into play all the books, all the magazines that are produced in the world, that's about a size of a terabyte. If you compare that to the megabyte, it's about the length of the Auckland Harbor Bridge. Now, 1 petabyte is the size of all the US academic research libraries. So it's the length of New Zealand. Now, just to show you the amount of information that's produced on the internet in just 1 year, 1 exabyte, that's about the diameter of the sun. Actually, it's even bigger than the sun. It's only 2/3 of the annual production of information. If you take the whole 1 year output of information that's produced on the internet, it's even bigger than an exabyte, bigger than the diameter of the sun. This is changing every year, and it's going to be changing every 12 hours. Now, if kids are going to be good problem solvers, what are the requirements? First of all, a strong memory is important. Even though you have Google to search the information, you still need to have the information in your head, because without remembering the past, you cannot use that information to guide future actions. It's important to understand the consequences of your actions. And if you have a positive or a negative consequence, then you should learn from those mistakes or successes. We have to also have a very specific growth mindset. That means that we have the can-do attitude vital to solving problems. If we don't believe that we can actually grow and change and progress, then there will be no change. So we need to think that at this point in time, I'm this type of person, I have this type of knowledge, but if I apply myself and add more information, I will be able to grow. This is the growth mindset, the can-do attitude. Along with that is the grit that's required to face obstacles. Life is full of obstacles, no matter how rich or how poor you are. Obviously, some of us have more problems, but everybody has problems. Everybody has to problem solve one way or another, because we're all, remember, interconnected. So we cannot separate ourselves from others because we're part of a global connection. So we need to have that grit, that desire to overcome those difficult scenarios and then make problem solving achievable. Again, memory and knowledge is used to evaluate these options and find the best solution. And processing large amounts of information at a fast rate is very important, because that can help us adapt to new or unknown concepts. One thing that is quite underestimated is something called the EQ, the emotional quotient. And this is something that helps us understand others and find solutions for best overall results. These are important in creating strong and very vibrant relationships and communication. This is important because if you cannot communicate, you cannot find the proper solutions. Anything good requires communication. Now, here are the 5 tips that we can give you so you can help your child become a master problem solver. These are not things that you really need special equipment. You just need to dedicate a few minutes a day, a few minutes a week with your child, become engaged with them, and spend the time with them and have fun. If enjoyment is not part of this process, then you're doing it wrong. These are effective and we use these every day. Also, we see hundreds of students every year. We have many, many classes. So we've practiced these tips with these students. These give actual results. They're practical tips, not just theory. And guess what? When parents go through our Shichida method program, they finish the classes, they come back to us and they say, hey, these actually work. We give tips to parents during classes and once a month, every week, as well as through social media. So we'll keep giving you all of this free information so we know these tips actually work. Now, getting back to the EQ concept, it's very important to remember that EQ, a big part of EQ, is having empathy, understanding what other people feel. A child with empathy thrives. Why? They can understand other people, and those other people will learn to trust those kids, will want to be with those kids. So that will create a positive environment for your child if they can have a certain sense of empathy. And remember, anything worth doing requires cooperation from people. So if you're a Facebook CEO, if you're a Tesla CEO, if you're doing a big, big project, or if you're working for a multi-million or multi-billion dollar company, you cannot possibly do that by yourself. You need to understand people, see what motivates them, and then help them see your vision to come up with the solutions required to make your millions or to affect the world. These can be used in university or work environments, and because collaboration is an essential skill, having that empathy will be a big first step to getting to that point. Now, how can you help your child gain more empathy? It's very easy. Just ask them a question. especially if, for example, one of the main things that kids have is not wanting to share the toy. Obviously, sometimes if a child doesn't want to share a toy, sometimes you don't want to force them, of course. There's actually research that says that maybe it's best to not have to share all the time, but sometimes you do have to share, and there'll be times where you can balance the two. But either way, if you ask your child this, if you share your toy with your friend, how will that make them feel? That puts the question in the child's mind and heart. That makes them try to imagine what the other person feels. Because then they put themselves in the in the shoes of the other person, and it creates empathy. Why will it make them feel happy, do you think? So you can kind of give them a little hint. If you share your toy, obviously the other child will be happy. But guess what? Your child might not actually understand that yet. They're forming their own internal moral and etiquette code. So you actually do have to train them and teach them that in a loving and gentle way. Now, if your child is facing a problem, you can also ask them these two very important questions. How will solving this problem affect other problems? So then they'll see an interconnection between all the problems, having an empathy for the problem itself. How does the problem feel in their minds, in their hands, in their heart? Having this sort of emotional connection to the problem will motivate them, and again, have that grit to keep going on even when the problems become difficult. How will solving the problem help other people? When your child is able to understand that solving a problem will help cure disease, will help their mommy or daddy be happy, will help their friends, they actually want to help make the world a better place, believe it or not. So helping them see this, helping them not also help, but also achieve their own personal dreams, this will help them understand, get a sense for why it's important. And we'll talk about why a little later, but this is a little bit more about empathy. Another thing that you can do is be a model. For example, when you're cooking, ask your child to do something simple like pouring water in a measuring cup. This helps teach the child how to cooperate, how to help mommy or daddy. And if the child needs help, you can teach them how to ask for help. Believe it or not, they do not know how to do this initially. You need to teach them. You even need to teach them the vocabulary and the phrases. Think about if you go to a foreign country. You have to learn the etiquette and the language of that country. Your child has no idea how to ask in any country, in any way. They're learning from scratch. So think of it that way. Your child needs to learn these phrases. So for example, thank you. Would you like some help? Can I help you? All of these are very important words and phrases that if you use repeatedly with your child, or if you use them with your mom or your partner, then these can be very useful and they will be a model for your child to use. An example of how teaching a child empathy can help a child learn to change the world. William is a little boy who would always go with mommy across the train paths, and he would see some very naughty drivers going through the train tracks, even though the barrier gates were down. And he said, what if we make a gate that closes on both sides? Now, this is a very simple solution, but he said, well, why don't I write a letter to the Premier of Victoria? And his mommy was quite encouraging, but at the same time, she didn't quite believe that the Premier of Victoria would ever care about a child's letter. Either way, she said, okay, well, she sent it off to the premier, and guess what? A few weeks later, the premier called, and the little William was invited to the premier's office. He actually met the premier, and he created a change. This child is not even 5 years old, and he's already creating the future because he's learned to have a sense of empathy. So imagine that your child doesn't just feel other people's feelings, but also can make his or her actions affect the world and make those actions more important for the rest of the world in a helpful way. Point number 2. Now, this one is quite challenging for parents because it can frustrate them. Many kids around 4 years of age start saying, I can't. I can't do this, mommy. I can't do this, daddy. And it's so frustrating because you know they can do it. Now, you have to be careful here because sometimes what your child is actually saying is, I can't meet your expectations. So, how we speak to our child can be very important. Even though we can be encouraging, kind of, if we are a bit competitive or if we really feel that a child should be doing more, sometimes we put a little too much pressure on our child, and that makes them feel like they can't do it. Guess what? Because they want to please you. And if you don't give them the opportunity to learn and to adapt in a supportive way, it's going to be difficult, and the I can'ts will start coming out. So we have to teach the child that the process is the most important thing. The results are good, but if you don't go through the process, you cannot learn what you need to do. And having grit is vital because parents can demonstrate and model the behavior to that. Now, finding and creating solutions and brainstorming ideas together can help them solve a problem and will make it fun and engaging for the process. Using the appropriate language to encourage your child is also important. Acknowledge the fact that, okay, yes, this is a difficult problem, but maybe it will be a little tricky now to do. But you know what? We'll find the answer. Okay, so acknowledge the fact that it's difficult, but show them the fact that soon you will be able to help. You'll be there by your side. You can say, you know what, this will take a little while, but soon you will get better and better the more you practice. Keep saying these things, and that can help them understand the possibilities. Break the problem down. When you have a big problem, even if you have a project at work as an adult, it's always good to break the problem down and then look at the parts that you can do. Ask your child, yes, this is a very difficult problem, I understand. Let's take a look. What can we understand about this problem? If it's a math problem, maybe you can look at the numbers. Which numbers do we have here? Maybe you can take all of the parts and then put them back together, and soon you will come to a solution, or at least help the child get closer to the solution. Appealing to the way they learn is also important because some kids are visual, some kids are oral, some kids are very tactile, meaning they like to touch. So using their favorite toys or pieces of paper to help them visualize is also very important. So if you're doing numbers or addition, maybe you can use their little toys. If you're adding 4, you can have 4 little toys and add them all up. Having a scrapbook or a journal of their progress can also give them confidence. In your phone, you have lots of memory to just take pictures, and each picture will be dated. Over time, you could just collect them in one place, upload them to your computer. It's very simple. All you have to do is make sure to back up everything because you don't want to lose all that beautiful information. Guess what? Over time, you can have a timeline of every single thing that your child did. If you do it every day and consistently, you don't have to do anything more. A few minutes a day, and that way you can save having to collect all the papers on the refrigerator. It'll just be digital. This will help the child see over time how they've progressed. It will help you see their progression as well, because then they will be able to show you, look, mommy or daddy, I have improved in this. And you can have a mutual kind of cooperative way of developing their own skills and progress. Now, I had this scenario, one little child, and we used the same thing. He didn't like to do maths, but we used all of these techniques. And then once he was older, once he was more confident, Dad asked him to answer what 4 plus 4 was. And instead of saying 8, he said 4 plus 4 is 20 minus 12. Guess what that is? 8. Because he had that good foundation, and that good foundation is very important, he was able to gradually build his confidence over time and even have fun doing maths. Point number 3, encourage problem solving every day. Problem solving comes at every point. We always have obstacles. And how do you react when you have a problem? How do you react when you can't find the parking space? How do you react when you lose your phone? How do you react when you spill coffee on your shirt? If you react with emotion and without logic, guess what? Your child's going to model the behavior. If you allow your kids to use their imagination, if you model it in an imaginative way, oh, well, mommy did spill some coffee. Maybe I can take this towel and wipe it down this way, and then it can go away. By finding these practical solutions, you are teaching your child that they can face any problem imaginatively and creatively. Obviously, we're going to have really difficult times, but at least by giving them an opportunity to see how to solve a problem, it will be very helpful for them. Now, when you have a very difficult problem, it's always nice to maybe read an engaging book. There's countless and a rich variety of books that you can find at the library. One little book that I always used to read was The Little Train That Could. This train is going up the hill and it would say, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And by the end of the story, the little train was able to go up. So this is just a very basic story. And for this example, you could ask the child, well, why did the little train that could try his hardest to get at the top of the hill? You're actually asking the child, well, why was the train trying so hard? And the child could say, oh, maybe his friend was at the top of the hill, or maybe there was a yummy lolly at the top of the hill. But you're getting the child to think the whys. Well, again, we'll get back to whys in our next point, but you're getting the child to think. You can discuss freely, and sometimes the child will be able to express themselves. Maybe they can kind of tell you what problems they're having at school or with their friends, and you can ask further questions to help stimulate the child's problem-solving abilities. If you give them opportunities to make their own decisions, that's also very important. So for example, if you're going to see grandma have lunch and then go to the park, you can tell the child, look, we have these 3 things to do today. How do you think we should go about planning these things? And then help the child follow a kind of technique to maybe come up with a good day for the outing. Maybe they could go to the park first, then have lunch, and then see grandma, or maybe see grandma, have lunch, and then go to the park nearby. And this all depends on your specific situation. This helps your child learn to come up with a plan or a solution. Now, this is very important because the type of language that you use will make the child more able to give you a proper answer. It needs to be age specific. It needs to be parallel with their development. Level 1 is giving them the answer. So this gives them a very simple answer. This is what we're going to do today. Okay? So then they see your behavior. They're modeling the behavior. You've made the decision. Now you could say we're choosing this one because the why. So that's a very important reason or a very important technique, because then they can understand why you're doing something. So if they have a tantrum, you say, well, we're going to do this because. Level 2, when you offer to let the child make a decision, you give them 2 choices, an apple or an orange juice or milk. Which one do you want? Which one would you like? This helps the child make more difficult decisions, but it limits the choices to 2. One of the main problems that parents have is they just give kids too many options, and too many options can frustrate a child. Too many options can frustrate an adult. So if you've ever been to the supermarket on your grocery shopping day and you see all the amounts of toothpaste that you have to choose from, obviously it's very difficult to make a choice. Can you imagine a child that hasn't seen any of this having to make a choice of more than 2 things? So once they're able to learn to make proper 2-choice decisions, you go to level 3. You say which one, more than 2 choices. Do you want the apple, the orange, or grapes? Do you want the orange juice, the milk, or water? Okay, and then as they go to level 4, you can give them multiple choices. So in this scenario, you'll give them, do you want the apple with water? Do you want the milk and the grapes, for example? So you're giving them multiple choices. I'm not sure if that's the most delicious choice, but at least you're helping them understand choosing groups, which is another more advanced level. Again, you need to follow the pattern from level 1 and up, because if you jump the steps, the child will become confused and will lose confidence. As they gain more confidence, going from level 1 to 4, they'll be able to make more difficult decisions. And this is what you're preparing them for. At level 5, you're giving them the what. What do you want to do today? This to a child offers infinite choices. What would you like to eat? Where would you like to go? What friend would you like to see? What movie would you like to see? So again, if you jump to level 5, it's very difficult. One of the things that parents often do is with vocabulary is that they ask a child, what is this? For example, if they're trying to ask them what a pencil is. And this is difficult for a child because when they see a pencil, maybe they see the color, maybe it's an eraser, maybe it's long, maybe it's thin, maybe it's used to write. So the possible answers are infinite to a child. They're seeing so many things. So sometimes a child chooses to say nothing. This is usually because they've been given too many choices. If the child stalls or doesn't talk or seems frustrated, go down level 4, 3, 2, 1 until they feel more comfortable. Again, level 2 generally is the best one. Which one? Which one is the pencil is a better question than what is this in some cases. Finally, the more advanced level, what order, is when you, for example, with the case of seeing grandma going to the park or having lunch, you could say, well, we have these 3 things. What would you like to do first? What would you like to do second? What would you like to do third? This is teaching the child time management and focusing and planning for the future. A beautiful thing to do when they're young. They're never too young to learn this. Obviously, you need to go from level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and kind of gauge it with your heart, making sure that they feel comfortable making these decisions. But the child will surprise you with their ability to do these things and making these choices. Number 4, asking why. Asking why increases motivation. When you know why you're doing something, it helps open the possibilities of why we're doing something. Not only that, we can come up with new solutions. A very wonderful quote by Jamie Cassap, the chief education evangelist of Google. He says, do not ask your child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Instead, ask, what problem do you want to solve? Okay, so this helps make our kids more think at a deeper level. Now, some famous entrepreneurs asked this why questions. Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the World Wide Web, informally asked himself, why can't we share information freely? Tim Berners-Lee helped set the pace for the World Wide Web. You're listening to me through the internet. You're using your phone. Every single Wi-Fi that's surrounding you, all the computers we're using and the way they connect is based on the World Wide Web model. If he didn't think about that, if he didn't think about the why, maybe he couldn't have come up with that solution. With cars, the maker of Tesla thought, why can't we make electric cars stylish, beautiful, and dependable? As we speak, maybe a few days ago, he just came up with they just announced the $35,000 family car. So now these electric cars are becoming the new standard. This would have been unbelievable 5 years ago. And already, hopefully, most people will start being able to afford these electric cars. Steve Jobs, another innovator, as you know, thought, why can't we make computers and technology accessible and stylish for everyone around the world? This is the question that basically helped found Apple and helped bring to us lots of very cool and useful gadgets that have changed our lives forever. So, in your case, you can help your child ask why, but in most cases, your child will ask you why, especially when they're 4. And what do most parents do? They roll their eyes and they say, just because. This is a lost opportunity because instead of spending quality time and using it as a learning opportunity at home or at the library together, trying to find the answer, you've just negated their desire to learn. And then once you do want them to learn in high school, they've lost that fire to learn. Take advantage for these why questions that will coming up to you. Instead of being annoyed, try to see it as a wonderful opportunity to spend time with your child and learn something new together. To show you the example, one of our kids had a close family member who was sick, and she said to herself, why can't I try to help sick people and find cures for sick people? This is the strongest why of all, because she thought of somebody that she loved with all her heart and then tried to think how she can help that. But then she went a step further. She said, well, if I'm helping my loved one, I can help everybody else. Now, she's told mommy she's on her way to become a doctor because of this. Now, she might not become a doctor necessarily, but guess what? In her heart, she will always want to help people, whether she becomes a scientist, whether she becomes a doctor, whether she becomes an engineer or a salesperson. She'll try to find ways to help bring health and cure people from maybe sicknesses in some way or another. The final point, breadcrumbs and training wheels. Breadcrumbs means leaving little hints for the child so they can find a solution to the problem. Think of it as leaving little breadcrumbs on the floor, and the little bird follows the breadcrumbs and then it follows the path. In the same way, you give little hints towards the solution so the child follows those hints and then they can find the solutions for themselves. This helps their confidence and also being able to find clues to solving any problem. Now, remember, guide them towards the answer. Don't tell them the answer outright, because if you solve the problems for them, they won't be able to learn how to solve it themselves. Using the which one question, again, level 2, instead of what is, helps a child narrow down the variables. So you can use the level 1, level 2, and level 3 questions to help a child focus and not be overwhelmed. Training wheels are just what it is. Imagine a bicycle with training wheels. Once the child has mastered how to ride a bicycle, you take the training wheels off, you remove it. So you support your child as much as you can to learn the new skills with loving, engaged support, and then slowly but surely, as they become more independent, you give them a little more and more independence. This gives them confidence at problem solving and helps them feel supported and gives them strength to finding solutions. Training wheels are okay in the beginning, and it's important to kind of think how your child is motivated, because many children are motivated internally, meaning they really like the task or the thing that they want to do, but other kids are more motivated externally. Maybe they need a cuddle or a praise. For certain activities, some kids are internally motivated. So if a child really has fun doing something, they'll probably be more internally motivated. If they're less enthused about doing something, obviously you need to give them more support. So you have to balance the two. Sometimes the child needs less help, and we can, as Shichida teachers, with our experience, we can kind of give you an idea to give them more or less help. In most cases, the child will actually tell you. So there's a big balance between helping and giving them independence, and usually the child will give you a very clear message as to what they need. Be careful. We know that you know the answer, but if you answer every step for the child will never be able to learn to solve their own problems. So while we can offer support, while we can be engaged, we also shouldn't put everything on the platter. We need to have the child learn to solve their own problems. And I have a child who's a little older, maybe 4-ish or 5-ish, and guess what? They need a cuddle every now and then. And I know that if something gets a little challenging, he just turns around, gives mommy a cuddle, and then comes back and then does the activity. So this is helpful because once they enter the primary school, they're not going to have that cuddle from mommy. So the advantage of the Shichida method is that you can be there with your child, giving them that support. Once they start the traditional school method, you will not have that opportunity. Your child will be left without that support. So it's very important to give them that support now to be able to give them the confidence. Now, from this, a lot of people ask us, is Shichida a formal education? So are we actually like a primary or elementary school? We like to think of ourselves as an organic education center, where we parallel the child's development. We see where the child is in terms of development, and then we adapt the learning according to that. We give them constant feedback, we get feedback from the parents and the students, and it's a very engaged cycle. Positive reinforcement is used, and it's a very supportive environment. Mummies, daddies support the child. We support mummies and daddies and the child, and it's wonderful. And it's comprehensive because it's unmatched by any method in Australia now. We add to the foundation, making them so ready for when they enter primary school. Because guess what? When they enter proper school, it's not just about learning ABCs and one, two, threes. They're going to have to deal with bullying, drugs, peer pressure, the regular stresses of life, learning how to do all of these things. And if they're learning the one, two, threes, and ABCs at the same time, it's added stress. But if they already have a foundation, they're going to be able to deal with everything at a better and higher level. So, in the same way, imagine you're going to do a little parachute jump with your child. If you're on an airplane, and you have two choices. Would you tell your child that they'll be perfectly fine and let them jump without a parachute? Or would you tell them that if they jump out, the ride might be a bit bumpy, and then give them the best parachute to wear and give them the best training to do so they can handle any emergency? What choice would you do? Of course, you would do the second choice. You want them to be prepared. You want them to have the best tools and parachute, but also tell them that, look, it will be a little difficult. So if you think that a child should just be a child, that's perfectly fine. We have a method that lets a child be a child through our organic learning method. But we still teach the child to be as prepared as they can be for the difficult things that will come. So just telling a child to be a child and not preparing them, just telling a child to be a child and not teaching them numbers and letters, critical thinking, problem solving, and then expecting them to be able to deal with that in the future is unfair. So you have that choice, and we hope that you choose the second choice. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to give you more information. And again, if you have any questions, make sure to go to our website at shichida.com.au. We have a Facebook page, YouTube, and all sorts of social media as well as Pinterest. Feel free, if you haven't signed up for a free demo or a paid demo, do so at our website, or just give us a ring if you have any questions. Thank you so much and have a good day.